Hey there, crew, it's Mark. Today we're going to be flipping through a blogs and ideas journal that I just finished up a few weeks ago. This is a journal that I've literally had, can't even tell you, maybe 3-4 years, and just a go-to. Whenever you hear me talk about like research, development, and things like that, this is kind of where these types of things happen, is inside of these notebooks. This is an Archer and Olive notebook, A5 size, and I had it up on my shelf and just put this on the side so that I could know what it was. And this really is just like a research development ideas, grab a notebook, especially when I have an idea, a blog post, something like that needs to happen. Everything happens inside of this notebook. And so what we're gonna do is talk through the different pages. Some of them are really nice and simple, and a lot of them hopefully will just be inspirational, especially as you start to think about your new notebook for the new year. This type of notebook is a great place to try out different ideas, see what works, see what doesn't, completely remove any embarrassment around things not working it out. It's essentially a bullet journal sketchbook. And so let's go ahead and get started with page number 1 in here. This was a project spread that I was working on, and I do a lot of project management inside of my bullet journal, especially for work. And this is a video that I've done a long time ago, which talked about how I set those things up. So on a page, regardless of the size, I'm usually putting the project name that I have going on, the start and end date that I always write in pencil, because everyone that does any type of project management knows it's rare that that ever stays the way it's supposed to. So pencil works well to erase it and fix it up so you're not crossing it out. I have an area here for the team names, and then really just focusing on goals and notes. And this is usually a page that'll go on multiple pages and different collection pages as thing goes on, but it's a great resource page to come back to whenever you're looking for that project and seeing what's going on. This is a secondary page that would usually follow this up because the goals are gonna stay the same as a project is getting started. It's the notes section that usually continues on. And with an A5 size, sometimes I'll write all the way across the page, but sometimes just splitting that in half does what I needed to do, because you're just kind of writing long ways, any notes and things that are going on for a project. The other way that I like to project manage or really just figure out any type of task is using the Eisenhower box. And if you haven't used this before, it's a really great thing to do after you've done like a brain dump on a page, and then you want to start to organize where those things fall in priority for yourself. So across the top, you write urgent and not urgent. And then down here on this column, you're going to write not important and important. And when you start to place things inside of the Eisenhower box, essentially you are rating that task or that thing to do. Either it's important and urgent and needs to get done, or it's important but not urgent, so something that can maybe just wait a beat. Then you have urgent and not important. Those are the things that like people are asking you like real quick, hey, can you do this? But in the grand scheme of things, it's really not an important thing. This is really where you should be focusing your time. And the not important and not urgent goes down here. And this is usually a space where you delegate, delete. That's where a lot of the things inside of here happen. It's not really a great use of your time, especially when you have things going on in the other quadrants. So just something to think about. And if you haven't tried the Eisenhower box, I definitely say give it a go. 2021, there you go. That's when I set up this page. Wow, 4 years ago, that's crazy. One of my all-time favorite project management methods is called the Ivy Lee method. If you haven't used the Ivy Lee method, what I love about this is that you're essentially planning your day in advance. So you're coming down and you're writing out your page the day before you get it started, and you number that 1 through 6. And what you do is you take on the tasks one at a time as you go down your list, not skipping over, getting one done before you move through. And then you just take the notes for the rest of the day, right? You write the date up here too. And then at the end of your day, you go ahead and you would set up your next day. In this case, it would be June the 2nd. You would write numbers 1 through 6, and you would go through that process again about prioritizing those things that you need to get done. And again, taking them on one at a time. And there's a great story behind it. I feel like I've told it like a million times, but you can look up the Ivy Lee method for yourself to get the background on it. But this method is really nice and easy way to approach prioritization in your day, as well as taking notes and having new things come in. The other method I like, I don't use this one as often, and at least maybe not exactly in this exact layout, but something that you could consider is the 1-3-5 method. I don't know if I've read about this somewhere else or if this is one that I made up, but essentially you focus in on the number one thing that you have to get done in that day, 3 other things that you have to get done that are a little bit not as important as that main one, but still should be up there, and then 5 things that you would like to do. So they're definitely not the priority. 1 and the 3 need to be accomplished first, but it's a great way just to kind of list out the things that you want to do. It gives you a lot more room for things. It doesn't seem like it's a lot because you have 1 main task, 3 medium tasks, and 5 that you may or may not need to do, but these are 9 task items that you want to try. And this doesn't mean that these are always happening in a single day. You could write down these tasks, use this as a collection page if you wanted to, and then always come back to it and reference things as you go throughout your week. It's a really nice and easy way to focus in. Honestly, I would use this on a weekly basis versus a daily basis, but that's just me. That's how I like to work. You can turn this into whatever you want to, but a really nice and great productivity method if you haven't tried one before. This is actually a layout that I was playing around with. So back in 2021, which I'm assuming is when this was happening since it's so close up there, I was deep into a lot of projects. I was a project lead for my team. I had a lot of stuff that was going on. And I was trying to find ways to incorporate those project overviews, what was important, along with weekly overviews and daily logging. And so this is the solution that I came up here. On the left-hand side of my page, I put the 4 most important projects that were happening. I left space inside of those, and that way if I needed to jot down notes or due dates or anything specific to that for that week, I had that over here. Then I had this notes section, which mostly pertained to things that were happening within my projects because I was handling weekly notes and daily notes in the pages past this. Now, I love a weekly spread. It's been my go-to as long as I've been bullet journaling. So it's just something that I like to have to give me a really nice overview of the week. You could drop appointments in here, tasks that are specific to that day that need to be done, reminders, and then having large areas for your notes as you're going through. It's just one way that you could take on your entire week with a really nice week at a glance. Here's my big projects that are going on. Here's my overview. And then you turn your page and you can get into your daily logging or just regular weekly task if you need to. I was also playing around with just breaking down those projects a little bit more. This doesn't necessarily have to do with this page here. This is kind of a different idea that I was playing around with that was saying, okay, here are the main projects that I have going on right now. What are the top 3 things that I need to accomplish for that? And then I would jot down any type of extra notes and things down here if I needed to. This is definitely for like bigger projects that you're kind of break down into smaller pieces. This could be worked along like in conjunction with one of these like main project pages that we showed up front here. So you just kind of have those overviews here, but then you start to break that down a little bit more into your week, and then you just get into your daily logging or whatever else that you need to do. Ooh, my original grid space cheat sheet. So something that I don't always love about Arch and Olive notebooks is that there's no real way to know exactly like, how am I gonna lay out these pages? What am I gonna do? So in my mind, I needed to create a resource page that was going to allow me to do this. And I think I set this up before I used one of my A5 sizes that I did because I wanted to have a reference page that I could easily get to. And so a lot of the times I would put these in the back of my notebooks. So here's the final version of this that I actually put inside of my notebook, but it always starts as an idea before I put it down inside of pen or in the back of my notebooks here. And this was a way for me to figure out what are the common ways that I like to create spreads in my notebook. What do I like to do? So I have 2 pages. I have this horizontal view, especially down for columns, and then I have kind of these column/rows over here. And I just broke them down into my most common used. I would break my page into halves. So there would be 19. So there's 19 squares in a half as I go through. I could draw a straight line across if I wanted to, or if I wanted 2 equal rows here, they would be 18 with 2 in between. And I broke them down really into, if I broke it down into thirds, 4, and then 5. It would be rare that I would go down to 6 because that creates like really small little squares if I was trying to get that many in there. And most of the time I was doing 5 days during the week anyway. So even if I line them up this way, it's 7 all the way up and it leaves 3 at the top. And then I could go ahead and write in the day of the week here or the month or whatever that was. I did the same thing for my columns, I guess. Columns and rows are weird when you're thinking about how you're using your bullet journal here, but I guess these would be for the columns going down my page. If I broke that in half, if I wanted to have 2 equal parts with a little bit of space in between them, if I broke it down into thirds, 4, and then 5 as well. 5 was difficult. I usually, if I was going to do days of the week, that's when I would use this here because I would have a lot more space. Otherwise, that's a little tiny space that you're trying to fit, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into. It's just something that I had to kind of figure out. How is this going to work? Often I would use this 3-column one here, and I could do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on one side, and then Thursday, Friday, and a weekend on the other side. And it was just so easy and a great reference page and something that I use all the time in my bullet journals. It's just a great reference page if you ever need one. And I think I actually created a printable for this. I'll put it down in the descriptions if you're interested in that. So this was me playing around with a schedule version here. So I have all the days during the week and a weekend space that I split in half. And I just alternated each of these lines with the time. So it would be, 9 would be here inside of this blue, 9:30, 10, 10:30, and all the way down. And this is something that I would use for work, or the idea was to use this for work. I don't know if I ever actually followed through in using this or not. But what I really liked about this one more than anything is how I was using stamps. At this time I was only just getting into stamping, and this was just one way for me to explore that a little bit, mixing in how I would utilize a page for work, and then getting some really nice crisp days of the week or notes or whatever that looks like. But this was a really fun spread. Maybe I need to bring this back. I don't know if it would work for me now or not, but I like the way that it's looking. This definitely had to do with some blog posts. This is when I was on the Archer and Olive design team, or the ambassador team, and we were coming up with different ideas for things. And so a lot of the times before I would film that video or make that blog post, I would just ideate inside of this notebook and say, like, how would this work? So this was a reading list that I created. This is using Eric Small Things stamps. You can see the gridding out here. Something I like to do with these stamps specifically is create like those radial stamp patterns that I've done that maybe you've seen here over on Instagram. And this is just a vertical way to do that. Line them up, see how they look, put some reading items. What am I reading? What's going on? I'm not really big into reading journals, but I know that they are popular, so I was probably creating that for this. Also using more stamps over here. This is for a spring review, taking a look at just some ideas and looking back. What were the highlights of the month? What were my favorite things that I did during that month? And what challenges that I have that maybe I want to overcome for this new month? So if you haven't tried a monthly review, sometimes we'll do an intentions page, but then not follow up with like a review or a reflection. This is a really great reflection page. It allows you also to, do some like memory keeping inside of here, jot down things that you really like during that month, and then come back and refer to these in the future. Maybe you want to take a look at some of your faves and revitalize them again. Or maybe there's something really cool you did in April of last year that you maybe want to do again this year. Just some ways to do it. Obviously put any month that you want on here, but having these were a really great way. And then just playing around with some of these stamps. I must have used a gold acrylograph over top of the stamp to give it a little bit of a different look. So just trying different things, experimenting. That's what this book is all about. I cleaned it up a little bit without all those pencil lines. All right, and then here was another weekly overview idea that I was playing around with. So this was a stamp that I got that just has all of these words, and I was thinking, like, how do I use this? What do I do? I like to create pages that have a little bit of visual interest and dimension. So adding this very light gray drop shadow was a way for me to do that, right? Otherwise, without that, it's just a rectangle with the stamp off the side. And I was like, no, I want to create something a little bit more. So creating that drop shadow down here, I think gives it a little bit of that cool look. It looks dimensional. It looks like it's on top of that text. And a lot of the times when I'm sketching things out too, I'll just write in this space, like how many squares this is. And that way, if I'm referring back to it when I'm ready to set up a bullet journal, I can just look at it versus having to measure everything again, because I've already done the work up front inside of a notebook like this. This was an idea that I don't think I ever finished. I must have been at the beach, I want to say. I think I remember this. I was sitting down thinking up ideas, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Having like an image over here on the side and then like an overview over here on the left and coming over here a little bit. I don't think I finished it because I don't know what I would necessarily use it for. But I think if I'm thinking back to this, you could use it for snapshots. So similar to what we just talked about for this, highlights and favorites. You could do that for an entire month over here and grab the 6 most fun things that you did and write a sentence or 2 about it. You could do a weekly overview if you wanted to inside of here and just take a look at what's happening and then get artsy on the side. It's all about spacing and thinking about how I would use this space, but it never really followed through on that one. You'll also see pen test inside of here as I was getting new pens and trying them out. This is for the Uniball Spectrum. At this point, I don't think I was really big into lettering. It's just trying different things. I don't think this is the most amazing thing in the entire world that I've ever done, but for me, it was fun. So Uniball must have been doing some type of a Father's Day collaboration or something like that. So I was able to use those pens and then make this, to the coolest dads, most off the chain, all that in a bag of chips, notorious DAD. So just being fun and having fun with it and experimenting, right? I don't do this stuff all the time, but I still had fun doing it. And it's cool to look back on it. Like, this is a notebook that I'm probably not going to get rid of. I was thinking about it, like, what do I do with this notebook when I'm done? But I think it'll just sit with my other finished bullet journals because there are some really good ideas in here. Or I need to find a way to like archive these digitally to come back and take a look at them. Now, this is a cool spread. So this was over the summer, and I was playing around with some new pens. There's a lot of that fun stuff happening here. So this is a weekly overview. This is just kind of the same thing we've seen before. And what I like to do a lot of the times with those is just mix it up a little bit, use stamps. In this case, I was doing a fall theme using these colors. So we have like a watermelon, a little fun drink, ice cream. You've got yourself a lemon over here and a eaten popsicle. And this is just a really great and easy way to create those overviews or take a look at tasks, right? We had a pool party on this day, and then I put the things I needed to grab before that task was complete. So I kind of build in these lists here, or if we're gonna make s'mores out back, what are the things that I need to make those? I think s'mores are pretty easy, but maybe something a little bit more complex you need to remember. You can write that inside of your journal where it's happening. I think that was the overall idea here is like, yeah, let's do a weekly overview, but if I'm doing and making a list, just put it right on here versus putting it somewhere else and having to find it. This is playing around with some lettering and ideas, how can I use these different pens and create things that look different? This to me is a great resource page. This is something that I do open up to inside of my journals when I'm thinking through like, what are just different ways for me to write headlines, right? If I'm gonna put something in a banner, doing it vertically, doing some of this fun lettering that I still do a lot of this lettering inside of there, but just generating ideas and then hopefully creating inspiration for other people. It's a really fun thing to do inside of your journal as you play. Let's see what this was. Draw your day. I want to say this had to do, I don't know what this had to do with. Some type of visual drawing. I want to say that this was a part of like one of those creative block parties or creative things like that, and someone was talking about visual note-taking for your day. So I think I started with the idea, but I never like followed through, or I think I might have just been copying what they were doing. Maybe that's what I was doing. I have to look back, like whatever Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 was, something was happening in here. Just never followed through on the idea, but I think I kind of liked the idea, just didn't use it again. Oh yes, we were talking about textures and things like that. So yeah, it's a fun little thing. I don't know what this is. This feels weird, so it must have been some type of a new medium or crayon or something I was using. Oh, I love this one. This is one that I think I created for one of those sessions where I was the one doing the session. And I definitely use stamps inside of here because I remember carving this stamp. So this is a weekly overview utilizing those stamps. So how do you carve a stamp and then use it? And then putting the days of the week inside of there. And then having a little space up here for this quote. You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. So Maya Angelou quote, which I really liked, especially when you're being fun and creative inside of your journal. Don't know what this is. More like waxy stuff, whatever that was on that other page. Here's another version of this. Creativity doesn't wait for that perfect moment. So utilizing those and just trying out different things. So again, as you try out different ideas, what's working, what's not, used a different pen, had a different quote, used a different size marker, makes it feel very different. I like this one. It reminds me a bit of like a comic book, I think is what I like so much about it. Some more stamps that I made. Excited about those. I haven't done that in a while. I need to pull those back out and play with them a little bit more. All right, so this definitely was for a blog post because these are not my colors. More than likely, this is something from Archer and Olive. We have these stickers and we have these tasks over here. So it was an idea of, how do I create a monthly overview and really just get a big focus on that. This is definitely using acrylic graphs over here. So that's how I know if I've done something for Archer and Olive. You can just tell when it's their stuff, So this is a way to have that monthly overview and split out home and work. This is something actually that I'm thinking about doing in this new year, bringing my notebooks back together. How do I get home and work kind of into the same space? So this might be something, maybe not exactly that I would use this idea, but something close where I have a view and it's split out between work and home. Definitely playing with some new pens. Anytime I play with a pen, that's what I write. Hello, my name is Mark. Hello. I think it's because like the lines look so cool in the word hello. When you're writing the brush lettering cursive, it looks so nice. And then just playing with some more ideas on how to use them and stack some different colors. I want to say this came as part of a subscription box. I remember these because this was like in a roll of these calendars and things, and you would like tear them off and then put them in your page. The problem was that you had to use the right pen, that these were smearing like horribly. Probably why I don't use them. Don't know what this was. House projects. So this is me working out an idea. How much space there are on each of these pieces. What does this look like? what project is it? And then I broke it down into area, the project itself, cost, and priority. And you can see in here, I was putting in how many spaces. At first I was like, what does this have to do? They're out of order. But it is 6 squares across here, 8 across here, 5, and 7. And then working through, what was I calling this? The timeline, when it's happening, priority, what's going on. I don't think I ever used it, but I was thinking about it. We have another monthly overview here. This is using those same stickers again, so it must have been for a blog post, because I don't really think I use them in my personal life. No, it just wasn't about it. All right, so this is another really big, huge spread. This is the type of spreads that I really love making inside of an A5 size, because it just makes it feel like there's so much room on the page. And relatively simple to do, right? You just space everything out, you give a little drop shadow if you need to, you have an overview for that week, and then you just do some fun lettering. This was a old like sailor tattoo font that I was playing around with. I really like it. I think it's very cool. We got some new Uniball gel pens. And then what is this, an index? Oh, so I probably also use this notebook 1,000 times to do like new setup videos inside of a bullet journal, especially because I'm faking in the numbers here. Here's page 1, quarter of the way through a notebook. But this is just, again, this is a grab, right? When I'm setting up a bullet journal or I'm doing a video about setting up a bullet journal, it's easy to just grab a notebook that already exists and kind of imagine what it would be like if you started it from scratch versus having to grab another notebook and then have, 5 or 6 notebooks that have the same index and future log and all of that stuff on the front, but then you don't use the rest of the notebook. So instead you just grab yourself a notebook and you're good to go. So the basics of setting up a bullet journal, if you're interested, is you have an index page, and I give myself usually 2 or 3 pages for that. And then you set up your future log. So this is where things come into in the future. So we would be starting this in September. So the next month is October. And then you would set up 6 months or however you want to do that for yourself. Here's September. And then we go ahead and we just set up each of the days of the week with the number as well as the day of the week with the letter. Now, what I don't love about this, and I actually don't even use this anymore, is because this only kind of gives you like one thing a day that could potentially happen. And if I'm using this for myself and I need to write down appointments or things that are going on, I usually need more than one line to make that happen. It's a part of the core, part of a bullet journal. It's how it talks about it. So it's here if you need it, but I always like to take a different view on like how I would potentially approach that. And then we go into daily logging. So that's like if you don't have collection pages or you're not doing anything extra, it's like bare bones bullet journal. And then I'm guessing maybe I did that again. Here's it all over again. Did some color coding over here for something. Now I'm very curious, like what was I doing that I was setting up all these different bullet journal views? Look, it's September 2021 or maybe something for August. This was a monthly overview. This is when I started to play around with those calendars. So instead of using something like this here where you only have like one thing you can put a day, I started playing around with what would this look like if I created a calendar page inside of my bullet journal for the month. I personally like this a bit more. I guess you could say, well, you don't have a lot more space to write things there than you do here, but I can abbreviate things, I can color code, and something about this just works a lot better for me. Some more examples of the Ivy Lee method that we were just talking about before. What are you doing during the day? Migrating them over as you go through each. We have the Eisenhower boxes again over here for us. And then we have another bullet journal setup that we've done. It must be, I've gone pretty far inside of here. So this was probably for a video that I did to set this up. We have our index pages. We have our future log, goals and objectives, things that you can add inside of there if you want to. Look at that fun lettering. We have one-on-ones. This may have been for if you're using your bullet journal at work. So you set all of these up for yourself. This is like a big collection page. I used to set these up a lot in my bullet journal. I guess I don't go as in-depth anymore with them because it's a lot of work just to write down notes. But we have our weekly review design meeting. So anything that was happening within this meeting itself, I would come back to this page. You would write down the notes for this specific meeting. I go back and forth if that just makes sense to put that inside of your daily log for that week, since it's for that week, or having everything in one place. And sometimes I'd just like to look at this because as my meeting goes on, I can see, well, what happened last week? Did I or did I not accomplish those things before I get into this week? And it's a really nice, easy reference page and good collection page. Another kind of view on that project that we talked about, what's that project, start and end dates, team members, goals, notes that we saw in the very beginning. And then from there, just going into the days that things are happening. So it's like rapid logging for a project if you're keeping a project that way. This is a fun one. Mid-year check-in, end-of-year feedback. So don't know when I use these. I'm like, did I make a video for these? I'm not sure. So this would be for your mid-year, or you could do this for the end of year check-in if you wanted to for yourself. This is great for at work, especially if you have those end of years or those mid-year reviews with your boss. You could even use this on a weekly basis, depending how often you meet. But what's working well? What opportunities do I have? And what do I need to focus on? This is something you could jot down for yourself before the meeting, take your notes in there along with your boss, and then you have follow-ups from there. This was the end of year feedback. So this is something that I had to do a whole lot of when I was managing people. And I always did it in a similar type way because I needed to kind of follow through on a process for multiple people. So this was saying, this was an end of year feedback for Bonnie. These were the people that Bonnie asked for me to get feedback from. And then I would document when it was sent, if I needed to send a reminder, and then when those were complete. And I would do that for each of my team members. It was just a really nice and easy way for me to remember, like, who did I send it to and did they actually do it? And if not, do I need to let them know about it again? And then I would also set up spaces for special dates and notes. Most of the time, the special date section here would be, this is all due by November 15th. Or if something else needed to be done, or hey, I needed all of this feedback done by a certain time. It's a way for me to look at this while I was writing those emails and sending out those surveys and saying, hey, everybody, this feedback's for Bonnie. I need this back by the first week in November. And then I would also let myself know that then those were due the third week in November. Right? However that works out is how I would use pages like this. What are we playing with here? Playing with a horizontal monthly. I don't know if I like this necessarily, but it's interesting. Look at that old school lettering. It's like, I can clearly tell I didn't do a lot of lettering. I don't know that it would look a whole lot better now. I honestly think it would look a little bit better now, but weird stuff happening inside of there. All right, we've got a weekly overview. Is this paint? I think this is paint. It feels like paint. I don't know what this is here, but this is an overview for a week. I've colored something in here. I don't know what. It's like crayon or pastel. Maybe it's, what it might be? It might be watercolor colored pencils. I was experimenting, but it is what it is. There's a weekly overview with tasks. Oh, I remember this one. So I remember this because my daughter was really big into doing these scenes. And so this is July 2023 is when we did this. This notebook really is old. And I was saying, hey, that would look really cool in my bullet journal. Show me how you're doing that. And so I followed through her process to create this with this really cool, looks like a swamp, but it's supposed to be trees and their reflection, and then splatter painting the skies and the stars. Looks cool. All right, here's that printable version that I was talking about before. Must have been trying to see if it actually fit into my notebook, and it does. Oh my gosh, this looks chaotic. This was a tracker. What was I doing? Oh my gosh, look at this key. Make the bed, check homework, check grades, tidy up. Oh, I remember why I did this. This was for my daughter because she was struggling with doing these things. And I was like, we can set up a tracker for you so you can remember the things that you need to get done. And it was the top of the square was the AM, the bottom of the square was the PM, and then you had the day of the week. So you have a calendar view here, Sunday through Saturday, days of the weeks inside of here, and then you would use the dot markers to say what you did as you went through. I think I definitely abandoned this idea because I don't even know that I can keep up with it. It took me a minute to take a look at this and be like, wait a second, what is this? I think it's a cool idea, but maybe not as realistic as we would like things to be. We have another bullet journal start. Is this our third one that we've gone through in this notebook? That's so funny. Oh, here's a project one that I've started. So if you want to see what that looks like filled out, this is what it could look like here. I did add something different here, right? With team, an overview of the project, and milestones. This was a big difference inside of here, 2022. Interesting. I don't know how these things get set up or when I set them up. Did I skip way ahead and that's why I wrote 2022 in here when I just had that other painting here in 2023? Did I just leave a bunch of blank pages? I don't know. This was a follow-up. Oh, this, you know what? I think I remember this. This was a project management video that I think is on my channel. It may or may not be. I need to redo some of these. It's been so long. I've changed my ways. I think it would be important to update those. But this was one way to track a project. This was a second way to track a project. And this was high level and then tasks that needed to be accomplished as you were going down. So it was basically like, what is your header? And then here's like a breakdown of the way those things need to happen. And then this last page was talking about creating kind of like a project management tracker for dates. I don't like the way this one looks though, because it's going right to left versus left to right. Like I think I would switch these because this hurts my brain. But I think it makes sense because it's due like on the 3rd. This is due like the week of the 10th. These were due on the 3rd. This was due the week of the 24th. I think it was an idea. I don't know if I ever like followed through on it for anything because it doesn't work. It hurts my feelings looking at it, honestly. Oh, I loved creating these. Not the most functional. It's just very pretty to look at, right? I did this really cool circular lettering inside of here. I had like a circle. Actually, I think I used this guy here. I don't know which one I used, but I just created all the letters using these circles and stopping and starting it at certain points. And I think that looks really cool. And then just use like a brush pen or something like that to create these leaves coming out. Of course, you have to write hello, June, right? You can't just write June. And then like a little itty bitty tiny calendar over here. I like the way it looks. Again, it's not the most functional thing in the entire world. Let's playing around with some more of those brush pens. Some lettering over here, a little fun color drop shadow. Oh, this looks fun. Leave me alone. I really like the way that these look. Why don't I do these more often? Where did I learn this from? That looks so neat inside of there because it looks like a glass container, but then it's a little bit separated inside. See, this is why sometimes you just need to go through your stuff to be like, I like the way that looks. I should draw that again. I'm really impressed by myself. Look at me go. And here was just using some more stamps. That's a little nutty here, but it's for June, if you couldn't tell, using the letters to spell out the word. And then we have events and tasks. Did I do it this way, I guess? It's weird. Weekly overview using the same type of illustrations that we have here, so different ways to do that. It's another version of July, but instead I was creating planets instead. It's kind of neat. Not successful with whatever I was doing here. Little plants with the brush pen maybe. And then this was a monthly memory idea. Obviously it's spelled incorrectly and it's not quite working out, but I think I liked the idea that I wanted to follow through. And I don't know if I ever did that or not, but an idea happened. It's okay if you don't like me. Not everyone has good taste. I don't even know what pen this is. Black, red pencil. Okay, sure, Mark. Here's some other ideas for headers. I used to do a lot of this stuff. I need to get back to it. Like these are so fun to create. Again, it's like drawing, but it's like a little bit more doodling than drawing. You don't need a whole lot of artistic talent to do a lot of these things. You just follow the squares and you add a little bit of color and write what you want inside of it. Those are fun. Some stamps. Oh my goodness. Holiday cards. This is a big one here. So probably, you know what, it's funny. Very similar to what I used on those pages with those one-on-ones. Who is it? What's their address? Sent, and then do they receive it? This is a fun way to track what's going on. I don't know. I like this idea. I don't know if I ever did anything with it. Maybe. Brunch memory, so visual memory keeping inside of here. That's funny. Yikes. I think I'm playing with watercolor here. Yeah. So who knows what I was doing? Just playing. Just playing. Just a little calendar. Oh, I remember this page here because this is when I got into the Distress Oxide and making my own stencils. This was a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. I need to bring that back out again. That was such a fun like experiment that I was doing, and nothing sticks off the page. It doesn't bleed through the pages either. Be curious now, like I have so many issues with Arch and Olive paper right now with my pens. Be curious if this works again. Or I just need to go back to these notebooks. Oh my gosh. This was the page that I tried. So, oh gosh, a number of years ago, I thought I was going to do a series on YouTube where I would recreate other creators' pages. And this was one of Jess's that she did. Did not do justice, but I think this was like the idea page to see if it would work. And then I used a different notebook to do that. But this was her watermelon color themed one, to-dos, home and work. And then she had these interesting pages, and she's such a creative person. And I didn't know what I was doing. I probably cut off the A. That's why it's taped on here. It's not usable at all, but it looks really cool. A mood tracker. Would never use that. And then we have an action list. See, this is like very Jess, right? Action list, tasks, trackers, all kinds of fun stuff happening here. And this is why it was a short-lived series, because it's so much work. All right, second half review, goals, objectives, and priorities, 3-month plan, some lettering, using some stickers for a monthly overview, October. So it's like setting up the bullet journal method, but you don't have to write it all. These were from Oopsie-Daisy, I believe. And so you just take the strips and you create that monthly overview in a minute versus multiple minutes. Intentions, reflections. Yeah, here's more of their stuff. Just having fun, experimenting. This was a stencil that they had for that. That's really cool. I need to find those stencils again. That looks neat. Believe in yourself. And then a weekly overview. And then I think that is the end of this notebook. Another weekly, all kinds of fun. What is this? Ooh, why is this stuck together? Oh my gosh, wait a second. So this is from the Halloween collection. Why is it bleeding through the page like that? I did not catch that when I did it, but look at that. What is going on? Oh gosh, all right, well, I need to come back and test out this ink because I think this was the violet one that came as a part of that, but if that is bleeding through and ghosting on the pages, that's not good. Oh my goodness. Well, I'll need to come back to that. That was quite a surprise. I don't remember that happening when I tested it out. Oh no, and look at my notebook, it fell apart. I think that's also like the expiration date on the notebooks. I didn't realize that that happened to this notebook, and that's why we're gonna put it away. So hopefully you had a good time going through this notebook with me. I mean, there's so many cool, fun ideas inside of here. This is what it's all about. So if you have an extra notebook lying around, I definitely say have a fun one just to try things out before it makes it into your regular notebook, if it even ever makes it there. It's just fun to do. Let me know if you use any type of research and development notebooks for yourself or have sketchbooks for your ideas. I would love to hear about your experimentation and things that you've done. Make sure to drop a comment down below if you've got anything to share. Always love chatting with you in the comments. My friends, I'll talk to you next time. See ya.